More than a century after the wars against Carthage began, Rome was left drained, both financially and emotionally. War-weary Romans had lost hundreds of thousands of sons to bloody battles in faraway lands. Surviving soldiers had been fighting so long, they barely remembered their homes. One thing became clear. A non-professional citizen army was no longer adequate for an empire the size of Rome's. It would fall largely to one man to professionalize the Roman military, a general and politician named Gaius Marius. Marius saw the need for far-reaching changes in the structure of the Roman army. To be a soldier would now be a career in itself, not merely a sideline for landed citizens. Marius recruited even the poorest Romans into the legions and issued them standardized equipment, making them the best outfitted soldiers in the ancient world. Including weapons, a soldier carried at least 80 pounds on his back, earning troops of this era the nickname Marius's Mules. Rome's first true professional soldiers were even more fit and better disciplined than earlier armies. But the biggest change of all, this new class of warrior had a special relationship with its commander. When they became veterans, Marius would personally see to it that his men received a grant of land, often in recently conquered territories. In the end, this was more than a generous perk for poor soldiers with no farms to return to. In fact, it was revolutionary. Suddenly, a soldier's first loyalty was to the general who recruited him and took care of him in old age, and not to the state.
For the first time, the soldier looked to the general, not only for allegiance, but for pay, for retirement benefits, if you will. And then over time, then the army began to dominate the state rather than the state dominating the army. And that's the terrible legacy of Marius.
Powerful generals now controlled their own private armies. Soon, they would use them however they saw fit, even against Rome herself. By the 1st century BC, a powerful general called Lucius Cornelius Sulla would be the first to cash in on the loyalty of his men. And Sulla was famous for commanding the affections of soldiers. In 89 BC, when the Senate ordered Sulla to hand over control of his army in southern Italy, he refused, and his troops remained fiercely devoted to him. Armed with 6 renegade legions, more than 30,000 men, Sulla then did an astonishing thing. He marched on the city of Rome. Once in control of the city, Sulla's soldiers went on a bloody rampage.
Hundreds of Sulla's political enemies were then rounded up and executed, and he was the first among several generals who was to use his military forces in this way.
Sulla planted his own supporters in power and quickly left the city in peace, but nothing in Rome would ever be the same. A Roman general used his troops to enforce his own political power. It was the first time, but it would by no means be the last.